Just wanted to take a quick minute to pay a tribute to those of us who saw this coming, who saw it back in March, or even back in the early summer, really. But we knew that, well, this wasn't going to end. It wasn't meant to end, and possibly never will end. And yeah, it's a really harrowing realisation to come to, but it is also a noble realisation to come to, to acknowledge what's going on, and then to go further and to actually, act on it, to warn people, to defy the rules where, it's safe to do so. It takes a lot of courage, and one of the reasons it takes a lot of courage is because population is exposed to, of course, media with one single perspective, with very superficial differences, and that makes creates these attitudes within the general population, such as blaming the virus on other people. And of course we can point to one really prominent example of this being Priti Patel's speech the other day. God, she's a piece of work, isn't she? She's just so unpleasant and miserable and just intimidating. But yeah, she's basically blaming people who don't want to be put under house arrest, who don't want to have a face nappy on that obstructs their breathing, who want to be able to see other people like normal fucking human beings, blaming them for the pandemic, not China, not the government's crude mismanagement of it, not propaganda for making everyone shit a brick. No, it's your fault. And what this has done is it's really embedded in the normal person's attitude, this idea of blaming other people for all their problems. And I watched an interesting video earlier by Charlie Veitch. You probably know him, but he was saying about how they did the same thing in the Weimar Republic after World War II in Germany when there was hyperinflation. You needed wheelbarrows and shit to buy bread, and they didn't blame the government. There was a lot of propaganda and stuff, of course. They didn't blame the government for printing shit tons of money and mismanaging the economy, so that obviously how it works. GDP falls, money supply grows, you get inflation. Real GDP falls, that is. And but no, they blamed in that case a ethno-religious group, and we all know how that ended. But no, this time they're just blaming people who are simply questioning the government, questioning the main doctrine. And well, that's just as dangerous, really. It leads both things lead to tyranny. One's maybe is more immediately obvious, but it's the same idea. And so standing up against that, saying, no, I'm not going to wear your mask. No, I'm going to go and travel for exercise. No, I am going to go and see other people who actually have a fucking brain and can think critically. It takes a lot of balls to do that. And obviously, we are fundamentally social creatures, like I said, and that also means that we're quite vulnerable to peer pressure and stuff. And that makes a lot of people think, all this stuff's really stupid, but I better wear the mask. I don't want, so-and-so to, think badly of me and whatever. And, the government's really exploited that attribute of a lot of people, which, can at times, of course, be a virtue, in certain, cultural circumstances and stuff. But nonetheless, it's a cruel thing to exploit. And, it's a weakness. Certainly in this context, it is a weakness of people that they are so vulnerable to peer pressure and perceived social, norms and prejudices. And government's exploited that, and it really takes a lot of courage to stand up against that. And you should never stop, because if you've been going against the grain for a while, and now you submit and you wear the mask, you stay at home. People are still gonna, you were imperfect at the beginning. It's a Maoist tactic, right? They use it's, if your beliefs in communism weren't pure enough, they'd still, harass you and kill your family and shit. And well, of course I'm speaking an analogy, But it's the same here. If you're not perfect, they don't like you. They don't want you. You can't just think, oh, it's wrong, but I'll do it anyway. You have to believe, right? It's that Orwellian thing, right? It's not enough to simply pretend to go along with it. You have to believe. They have to take over what it means to be you. And well, I saw this in university actually, because I went to university, and well, it generally is a scam. I mean, I learned some cool stuff, but well, that's besides the point. The aspect of my university experience I want to talk about is the the culture, frankly cultural Marxism, cultural Maoism, I should say. There is a very rigid set of beliefs that, well, the faculty and a lot of students, particularly the rich students for some reason, which, well, that was most of them, they tend to hold, which is, well, critical race theory, like economic Marxism, and being against free speech generally, apart from when it's against white people, of course. Well, I guess that ties into critical race theory. And if you're against critical race theory, of course, you're called a Nazi, which is kind of weird because critical race theory sort of puts you on the moral equivalent of being a Nazi. But that's another conversation. The point is that it's not like if you said, oh yeah, maybe some white people have privilege, or oh yeah, maybe some speech is bad. Like, that's not enough. You need to be ideologically pure, or you're lumped in with, the other people who just stand against it. And so I saw this coming, really. Of course, you can, the bridge between the coronavirus thing and the college culture, university culture, is the Black Lives Matter events over the summer, which I've talked about. And so the principle is alarmingly consistent, and it really feels like this paradigm of you have to obey, you have to accept, and not only that, you have to believe that it's true. And that's spread into everything now. Absolutely, well, it's spread everywhere. I mean, life, you have to believe that lockdowns are good. You have to wear your mask, and you have to believe that you're wearing a mask is good. You can't even be wearing it and say, oh, does this work? No, you have to believe it, or you're anti-science. You're selfish, right? It's fucking mental. And like I said, we see it in 1984, we saw it in the Cultural Revolution in China, and we're seeing it now. We've seen it in colleges, in universities for quite a few years now. It's really ramped up, of course, lately, when they were open, that is, but I guess they probably do it over Zoom now, telling white people they're evil and stuff, and not to watch comedy shows because hate speech. I don't fucking know, but God, but it's spread everywhere, and the only way to resist it is to reject the peer pressure, to reject that instinct that a lot of people have quite strongly to comply, to just go along with the crowd, because you're following the crowd off a cliff edge, right? And well, arguably we've already gone over the cliff, right? You're under indefinite house arrest in the UK. No clear sign of all these mandates and restrictions going away. You've given away your freedom basically by going along with it, and the only way to get it back is to put your foot down and say, no, I'm not going along with it. It ends here. My natural rights don't end where your exploitation of a human mentality of how we approach social norms begins. My rights are inalienable, and you're taking them away. Fuck off. That's what has to be done. And it's not pleasant. You're probably going to lose a few sheep who you once considered friends, but it's what you have to do. There's no other way. You can't just sit down and wait for it all to blow over. It's not going to go away. Like, at least I doubt it. I highly doubt it. Now they've got it, they're going to, why would they let it go? And bit of a rant, but you really, I think you can see my point, right, about this stuff. The compliance, the deletion of the individual is really rampant and really plain to see. And Yeah, well, like, I'll start as I ended. Yeah, pay a tribute to the people who have seen this happening, they've seen it coming, and even people now who have realised this is shit and are doing something about it. It's not easy, it's not fun. You're probably going to get a lot of people who, you know, don't like you, look down on you. Some old, yeah, like I said, some old sheep who you thought were friends, maybe even some family members. But it's not worth it. It's not worth kowtowing for this, you know, sense of social comfort, because you can't even fucking socialise anyway, right? So yeah, just a tribute to bravery, really, a tribute to people who are brave and who have seen it and who have the ability to think for themselves, and especially to people who are talking to people and trying to get them to think critically, because it's a skill they don't want you to have, and by they I mean powerful people. I don't know specifically, well, you know, there's lots of people, right? It's we are approaching neo-feudalism. The nobles, I think, is a good way to term it. They don't want you to think critically, and that's why it's, you know, it's looked down upon so much. That's why they're using this peer pressure phenomenon, right? But to go against it takes a lot of courage. So I really take my hat off to you guys.